Here we are. It's Easter. Happy Easter. Woo! And what a beautiful day for rebirth and renewal and resetting and reinvention and redirection, recoming together, all the re's, right? And the energy for all of those possibilities is very present today. It's very present today. And the last 5 weeks with our book study of Robert Brummett's Birthing a Greater Reality. We've been, for those of you who maybe showed up today, we have been the last 5 weeks doing this book study, and this is kind of the conclusion this week. And it's really kind of led us up to this moment, I think, and given us the tools to be able to embrace these possibilities so that we can, in fact, help to birth a greater reality. That's what we're all about here. So let me do a sort of a brief review, looking at the ground that we have covered for the last 5 weeks, for those of you who haven't been able to be here each week. So let's take a nice deep breath together. And let's dive in. So we started at the very beginning of time. And then we fast forwarded to sort of the appearance of human-like creatures, Homo sapiens, when we discovered that Homo sapiens kind of stopped developing so much physically around 100,000 years ago and started developing the brain, which sort of began the process of conscious evolution. And that as we lived and grew and evolved over time, we learned that we affected everything around us, everything on this planet, for good and for not so good. And because most of humanity has been identified with the brain and the sort of the ego-separated sense of self, but not so much with their spiritual self, not so much with their heart, and then created a world from that place, that we are now at a crucial point. And we can either self-destruct, or we can take that quantum leap of consciousness that will shift humanity into the next era of living in peace and love and oneness. There will be a birth into the next phase of our conscious evolution. The question is, as Robert Brummett asks, will it be a cataclysmic Armageddon, or will it be a natural cosmic childbirth? How many of you would vote for the natural cosmic childbirth? Yeah, me too. So that does require us to surrender old ways of thinking, to surrender old ways of living, and to surrender to a divine vision, a higher divine vision that is seeking to emerge through us. So that is the question that we began this study with. And then the following week, we looked at other visionaries and scientists and philosophers and kind of got their views of conscious evolution. And it looked like most had, in one form or another, this idea that humanity is growing and evolving our awareness towards a realization that we are universal beings experiencing life in this human physical dimension. Universal beings experiencing life in this human physical experience. And we looked at this concept of involution, which is kind of the metaphorical descent of spirit into physical expression. This idea that Spirit loses itself in its creation so that it can find itself again through this process of evolution, discovering new dimensions of its being as it arises. That this is the process of awakening. Of awakening. And so we ask the question, though, so what does my personal awakening have to do with, universal birthing of greater reality? It turns out a lot. That there is an inextricable link between our personal healing and global transformation. We're coming to understand that we are all tied together in this beautiful quantum cosmic soup. Scientists are finding that on a quantum level, we're all entangled. We're all entangled. We're all in this together. And then so we looked at the various kind of maps of consciousness at that point. We looked at stages of evolution, of conscious evolution, and one in particular, spiral dynamics. That day we really explored it with the slides and everything. We probably have more of those handouts if anybody wants it. So really basically, to really pare it down, it's kind of 8 distinct levels where we have sort of shared values and worldviews, thinking systems that kind of create a cultural vibe, for lack of a better word. And it can also reflect where humanity has grown, the evolution of mankind from the very beginning, from that, survival mode, is the very bottom of that. And then the next level is sort of the tribal level. And the next level is kind of, we see warlords and dictators. And then the next level, there's more kind of organized systems and kind of governing rules. And I know I'm going through this really, I'm sure I'm missing something. Let's see, next level would be personal achievement and innovation and materialism. You see that there. And then the next level being more of a social justice kind of consciousness, equality. And then you reach the second tier of these levels, which is the consciousness, more transformational consciousness, those levels. And so each level builds on the next, and we resonate to whatever level feels like home for us. The thing is, though, when we are stressed, when we feel threatened, we will revert back to a previous level, a more kind of fear-based level. And on a global level, when this kind of energy of transformation and consciousness begins to emerge, begins to take hold, there are a lot of people who find that threatening, that they're scared of such quantum growth. And so they retreat back to the safety of a previous level, of a more fear-based level. And you can kind of see that happening in our world today, right? And it's causing a lot of tension. And so God bless you. God bless you. God bless you all. And so that led us into the next week's exploration of how we've all been mistaken about who we truly are and have assumed an identity that's really not us. Like we've created this false self that some call kind of an ego. which has, in a way, kind of helped us navigate through the world, this upside-down world, that is based in a belief in separation from source. So it served us. But to ignore who we truly are and not be aware of who, our true self and assume a false identity, that's going to create a gaping sense of emptiness, which we then try to fill up with all kinds of stuff. And that's when Brahmet says, that's when we get into trouble, right? And so appropriately, the next week we looked at the shadow self and looked at how the shadow self, unhealed, unaddressed, can really hold back our growth, can really sabotage our relationships and our efforts in life. And so we learned some techniques for how to heal these kind of shadowy places within us, how to heal that internal chorus of negative voices, critical voices that a lot of people said, oh, yeah, I got that too. Or whatever kind of wounds that have resulted as being out of alignment with our true self. And really basically distilled down to its essence, it is about listening to those rejected parts of us, getting a conversation going, and bringing it all to the light. And then we talked about how body work is a really good way to release some of that stuff that gets lodged in our body, right? Okay, so once we could then clear that out and begin to see more clearly, at least begin the process, so that we could see more clearly, then we can open to and acknowledge and affirm who we truly are. Divine essence, knowing itself more fully as us. I am divine essence, knowing itself more fully as me. Let's affirm that together. I am divine essence, knowing itself more fully as me. Yeah, breathe that in. Really feel the essence of that. And then we looked at people who had a sudden awakening to the fullness of their universal cosmic self in a mystical moment or a cosmic consciousness experience. And then we invited some of you who came up to share your sudden awakening experiences. And it was just so beautiful to witness that, one after another, different kind of stories, but, it all kind of confirmed the truth that we are more than we know. We are more than we ever thought we were. We are consciousness expressing in a unique and beautiful way. We're consciousness expressing in a unique and beautiful way, both universal and individual. And what an opportunity to be alive in this moment and realize the fullness of both of those. This is an opportunity to be present to that, right? And so then last week, we looked at what it really means to be asleep and then awaken. Excuse me. And we looked at how, the title Buddha literally translates to the awakened one. And what that process is like, And we looked at the part of being asleep is experiencing life with the filter of our interpretation, our judgment of life. You know, we don't see things as they are, we see them as we are, you know? And so we looked at how the practice of mindfulness, which I feel like we were doing with your meditation, Nathan, you know, being very mindful of every step in that labyrinth. And there's so many different ways to experience and practice mindfulness. And that can really help us to awaken, that process of awakening, because we're separating out the judgment, the interpretation of our experience so that we can be present to the actual experience. That practice of mindfulness. And then, lastly, we looked at desire and how desire that arises from the ego, from that separated sense of self, can pull us further into the illusion or Maya. But the desire that originates from the heart, that can help us move forward and express more of the fullness of who we are, who we're truly meant to be. And that ultimately, that the ultimate desire within all of us is to allow that evolutionary impulse, as Brummett calls it, the evolutionary impulse within us that is calling us ever upward. That evolutionary impulse that is calling us ever upward. So that brings us to the present moment, to today. And now is the time. Now is the pivotal time for a critical mass of us to become healed and to remember who we truly are. To at least begin the process of healing and to remember and live into that presence of who we truly are. The time is now. And as we do, you see, we help facilitate the emergence of that divine vision. That divine vision that's seeking to emerge, we help facilitate that. And we are the presence through which this can happen. This vision for humanity that sees us as living aligned with that miraculous power of our brain, aligned with the miraculous power of our heart. Living aligned like that. This vision that sees a life of us living in an energy of collaboration. Oh, imagine what we could create if we collaborated with everyone globally. Imagine what it would be like to live in a world of peace and working together and oneness and harmony. That's the world that I want to live in. How about you? Yeah. Yeah, oh yes. And again, that requires a willingness to let go of everything we know, a willingness to surrender old ways of being and old, previous ideas of what we thought was possible for us. Let go of previous ideas of what we thought was possible for us. It's kind of like the often used metaphor of the caterpillar. How the caterpillar has within itself this kind of group of undifferentiated cells called the imaginal cells. Isn't that beautiful? Like the imaginal cells. But those cells don't become activated until the caterpillar is willing to let go of everything it knows. It's willing to die of its physical self, right? to completely dissolve, and then those imaginal cells become activated and become the substance of the wings, right? Somebody in here had an outfit on that had wings on it. Here we go, Courtney, spread those wings. She is the embodiment. That's it. That's it. Taking off. Now, this being Easter, in a similar way, it was really only when Jesus was willing to release the physical body that the potential within him of love, universal love, and healing of humanity could be really fully realized, resurrected, and magnified into a power of light that could express love and healing of all humanity that has touched the hearts of millions and millions of people ever since then. You know, and whether you take this story metaphorically or it's real for you and you have a relationship with Jesus, that's a personal thing, right? That's personal. More importantly, is that understanding. Does that understanding inspire you to live in the light? Does it inspire you to have the courage to let go of old ways of thinking, old ways of being, to be willing to transform, right? To be willing to transform and to allow this, this idea of dying daily to the old self and abiding in me, that Christ consciousness, that divine consciousness. This is the transformation from darkness to the light. That's what the Easter story is, the transformation from darkness to the light. And I am just so blessed to be in community with people who are willing to commit to living mindfully, to having a connection with their spirit, to really experiencing their true spiritual self. And when we come together, and I have to say, this is why being in person is, it's great. We are blessed to be able to have the resources and the ability to live stream so that people who can't be here can also experience it. But there's nothing like being in person because you feel the vibration, right? It's the vibration, it's the energy. We are generating an energy of love that radiates out into the world, that radiates out, that touches others. And we're inspired by each other and supported by each other in doing whatever it is that we need to do, whatever role that we are playing in this awakening. This is how we participate in the birth of this awakening. It's kind of like the Bodhisattva vow, which is a vow to be, you're committed to the awakening, right? You're committed to the awakening of all beings, the liberation of all beings, and the attainment of Buddhahood. In Christianity, we would call that Christhood. In Judaism, we would maybe call it Tikkun Olam. It's the same idea that your awakening is tied to everybody else's. Remember, we're all in this together. We're all entangled. There's no getting out of it, Oswaldo. We're all in this together. Our awakening is totally tied to everyone else's awakening. This is how we participate in birthing a greater reality. And so this Easter, I would ask you to signify your commitment to participating in this birth of a greater reality by reading. We're going to read together, and then you're invited. You don't have to. But if it calls to you, go ahead and sign it. It's a sort of a personal pledge that you can take home with you, put it in a place that you can see it often to remind you of the commitment. And the greeters are coming by right now and putting that in your hands. And we're just going to take a moment when everybody gets it, read it together, and there should be a pen in the seat back in front of you, but I'm realizing the front row might need some extra pens. If there's two in there, there's an extra. I have one right here. I actually have another one. You got one? Over there? Oh, you got one? Okay. And then when we are finished with this sort of sacred, I really want you to take this into the sacred place of your heart. We'll do this together. Then you are invited to come up and receive communion. And the communion that we do at Unity Center of Peace is chocolate. Oh, that gets an applause. I love it. Which one is the milk chocolate? Which one's the dark chocolate? Oh, the milk is the right. So on the right-hand side, you got milk chocolate. On the left-hand side, you have dark chocolate. Oh, yeah. Right, left. Yeah. All right. So let's take a moment and read this together. Everybody got one now? Let's take a deep breath together. And we can read this out loud together or in the silence of your heart, however you want to do this. As a conscious evolutionary, I am stepping into a new dimension of my life. The universe is now consciously evolving through me. The divine pattern within my soul is being activated through my heart's deepest desire. Pregnant with the potential of a greater reality, I am about to make a quantum leap in fulfilling my purpose in this life, which is to become a fully conscious expression of the One Presence. If that calls to you, go ahead and sign it. Again, this is for you to take home and put where you will see it often. And as we begin this process of the chocolate communion, we're inviting Roshana to step up and play this beautiful song that is very much meaningful to her. Do you want to say a word about it? Okay. All right. It'll speak for itself. All right? All right. If we can do this row at a time, starting from the back row and coming on up the center aisle. And then when you're done, walk back up the side, please. And that will help us to flow a little bit better. Yes. it's Reverend Victoria here. I'm at Unity Center of Peace with our house band, Bright Matter.
Hello.
Yeah, and if this video has inspired you or empowered you or opened your heart, opened your consciousness, or even just given you hope, we ask that you support what we're doing here by making a donation today, going to unitychapelhill.org or clicking the link below. And we thank you.
Thank
Thank you.